Well, the National Kidney Foundation exists to make lives better for people with kidney disease. Very often when people are diagnosed with kidney disease, the first thing they end up doing is dialing us.
Kidney disease is a major public health problem, and it affects 15% of the U.S. population.
Chronic kidney disease affects 30 million people in this country. At earlier stages, only about 10% of them know they have it.
One of the things that we've really been trying to do is to see if we can raise awareness of kidney disease before it's too late, before it's hard for us to really treat patients.
In the mid-1990s, the National Kidney Foundation became concerned that the outcomes for dialysis patients in the United States were not as good as the outcomes in Europe and Japan.
Being a dialysis patient in those days was an uncertain proposition.
We were sort of flying by the seat of our pants. We did what we thought was right, although there wasn't that much we could do to make it better. And patients, particularly the dialysis patients, felt horrible. Their quality of life was horrible.
The mortality rate at that time on dialysis for patients in the United States was 20% a year. The average patient was living less than 5 years after they started dialysis.
And we also didn't have the ability to communicate with each other regarding kidney disease. So one person would be saying chronic renal failure, another person would be saying chronic kidney disease, and we weren't communicating what kidney disease is, and we couldn't communicate clinical situations to each other.
So we decided to undertake basically a massive research project to see if we could understand from the published medical literature what the best practices were for caring for dialysis patients and where the gaps were in the United States. In 1995, we started the Dialysis Outcomes Quality Initiative with the goal of looking at this evidence.
So there were 4 groups, and KDOQI guidelines were eventually written and published, and KDOQI emerged.
The National Kidney Foundation's KDOQI guidelines have literally touched every kidney patient in America.
Each of the KDOQI guidelines identifies gaps in research, where if we fill that information with knowledge, with clinical trial data, we can improve clinical care for patients with kidney disease.
What KDOQI does and evidence review does is it systematically puts that experience in a format, the evidence in a format, and so the patients get the best of all worlds. So it wasn't just about telling people what to do, but also just saying, these are the questions that we still don't know the answer to. Why don't we foster research in that area?
The KDOQI guidelines have been revolutionary, and you really can't overstate the impact of the guidelines. This standardization of defining chronic kidney disease by stages and defining how you measure kidney function revolutionized how we did research, and it allowed investigators from all over the world to have a standard nomenclature so you could combine all of these studies and really look at the impact of a number of different therapies.
The CKD staging system has really transformed epidemiology for kidney disease. It has helped us identify novel risk factors for transporting a patient from stage 3 to stage 4 to stage 5, and what can we do differently?
About every 5 years, we have updated the guidelines for vascular access. Vascular access is critical because it determines how efficient dialysis is. You know, how much blood can flow through the machine in the only 3 or 4 hours that you have. With earlier diagnosis, people now have the opportunity to plan for their access.
And I think about the scope of the guidelines. It really covers dialysis access, it covers peritoneal dialysis and hemodialysis and blood pressure and diabetes and anemia and bone disease. The guidelines have really touched and continue to touch every aspect of the care of patients who have kidney disease.
Since we introduced the guidelines, we've seen a 30% reduction in mortality among people with end-stage renal disease and over 26% in dialysis patients.
We have improvements in mortality, we have improvements in hospitalizations rates, but importantly also we have improvements with patient engagement. And if the patient is more engaged, they're going to be more interested in their health and they're going to do better in all different aspects, including quality of life.
In this moment going forward, it's really wonderful to see all the opportunities for hope for patients. And it's not just better dialysis and better transplantation, but maybe even delaying progression to the point that you don't need those things. And I think that makes it a very exciting time.
I think we've really done so much to improve the care of our patients, but I think that we still have a long way to go. We have the guidelines, we have to try to improve implementation of the guidelines.
Every day it's getting better, and there's hope. There's a great amount of hope for the future of kidney disease research.
My dreams are going to be fulfilled when people who have kidney disease are diagnosed early enough that they never have to reach kidney failure.
We're fighting for you, your families. We're doing all we can to try to prevent and treat this disease, to slow the progression, at whatever stage you're at, to see if we can do the very best that we can to take the very best care of you together.